Yeah, so far we've been met with a lot of enthusiasm. My expectation and goal as mayor is to maximize the amount of federal funding and support that we can get for initiatives. So unfortunately, Providence is the least affordable city in America for renters, and that in of itself is a growing issue because each and every single year we're watching rents escalate. And for that reason, we need to stabilize the cost of rent. There is a competitive race for the mayor of Providence.
So what I like to do, my interview stuff is a new thing currently, but the bit I'm doing right now is espresso martinis with whoever I'm with. So that is a mock espresso martini.
Oh, word.
We'll see how it goes. The last time I did this, it was basically just like a latte, and this is really not much different, honestly.
All right.
But I added, it was like some like liquid ginger or something. I could not explain it to you, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, there you go.
I love the glass.
Got it for $1 Ocean State Job
Very
Lot.
classy.
All right. Cheers. Hopefully it's not.
Cheers, my friend.
There's a lot going on. I don't know. It's ginger flavored, obviously, and I don't know if that really works too well. I was thinking because like I just wanted it to be spicier because the last time I made it, I just used vanilla extract.
Oh, it was like overly sweet at that point? Or
it was a little overly sweet, but also I didn't feel like there was like enough going on. I might have gone a little over. You're sorry, put it to the side.
What? Oh, no, I was putting those.
I feel like if there's less ginger, it wouldn't be too bad. I feel like it's just I used too much of that, whatever that even was. Okay. But thank you for being here. I really appreciate you letting me interview you.
Absolutely.
I was really excited when I heard about your campaign because I met you very briefly that one time, but also this is something I said to Connor too, that like I just really love the idea of more socialists showing up and just advocating for, progressive policies and just
basic solutions to support the people in our city, right?
Exactly.
Again, at the end of it, it's what I would otherwise say is just common sense.
Yeah, I would completely agree with you, honestly. It's pretty crazy how rare it is at the moment in politics. But I wanted to ask really quickly how the campaign has been so far, like how community support has looked like, because I know it's like still pretty early on, but I was just curious.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we launched in mid-September, and at this rate, it has been 2.5 months, and we've already knocked on over 7,500 doors.
Wow.
We have over 400 community members signed up to volunteer with us.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been all organic. What's really special is, again, just to see the grassroots organizing going into this effort.
Yeah.
But especially from community members all across Providence.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we have community members coming in from Elmwood, the Valley neighborhood, the West End, all the way back to the East Side. We're seeing a lot of community members just showing up, enthusiastic, many of whom are volunteering on a campaign for the very first time ever.
That's really cool. How many people are about? Is it like just new people coming and showing up?
So again, canvases vary. We've had some canvases with an upwards of 70 people. And during those canvases, we ask for how many of you is it your first time outdoor knocking. You'll see a vast majority of hands going up.
Yeah. That's super cool. I love the new energy coming up. And I think like, especially I feel like post Trump's second election, I feel like, because that's what I feel like I started activating too. And it feels like it's like a moral obligation to be active politically.
Yes.
So I think that's really great that more new people are coming up. I wanted to start out with the first topic being rent in Providence, because it's really a massive issue here. On what was it? It was on Redfin. It rated Providence as like the worst Providence for affordability for housing, which is pretty crazy given that we're in a small city, in a small state, and there's massive cities like New York, Boston, Seattle that all have a lot more condensed issues. And New York you'd expect to be the least affordable because of the population density. And you mentioned on your website rent stabilization is something you'd want to implement. Do you want to talk about how you'd go about implementing that?
Absolutely. So unfortunately, Providence is the least affordable city in America for renters when you look at the average cost of rent in comparison to the median salary that a working person earns. Mm-hmm. And that in of itself is a growing issue because each and every single year we're watching rents escalate. Between 2023 to 24, we saw a 16% increase in the median cost of rent in the city of Providence.
Yeah, which is nuts. I mean,
Highest spike in the nation,
yeah.
16%. And for that reason, we need to stabilize the cost of rent. And that would be a city ordinance that would be fully enforced, essentially saying that no tenant has to worry about their rent increasing by more than 4% on any given year.
Okay. What does that process look like?
So very similar to what is being done in Portland, Maine.
Okay.
There is a rent stabilization board that essentially oversees the implementation to ensure that when leases are being renewed, that tenants are able to exercise their right to ensure that whatever their lease renewal consists of, it's not going to be more than 4% compared to what they were paying the previous year. And if it turns out there's a violation of the law, there is a body that they can go to ensure that there's accountability.
Okay, that's perfect. What I wanted to mention too, I wanted to mention a bit later, but I think it's important because I think Zoran's campaign, you mentioned Portland too, but Zoran's campaign was really focused on rent stabilization as just like something to implement because like they also have a really massive issue with affordability in that city. Do you want to talk about, I feel like there's a lot of similarities with your campaign and also Zoran's. Do you want to talk about how you formatted yourself so far?
Absolutely. I believe government should be accessible. I think all forms of politics should be accessible to the communities that we are serving.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there is a growing discontent and disconnection that exists between working people, immigrant communities, and government.
Yeah.
A lot of that has to do not just based on what we see at the federal level, but a lack of engagement happening locally. And so one of the main goals that we have for our grassroots campaign, similar to the way that Zoran was able to demonstrate in his campaign, is having a consistent and disciplined message that is accessible, easy to understand, and brings the message directly to people. Mm-hmm. And for that reason, we've been very steadfast on knocking on doors, having town halls, and making sure
that reaching out where they are.
Yes, and making sure that the information we put out, whether it's on social media, for example, is accessible.
Yeah.
It is a short form video that you could watch and understand what it is that is being proposed and how the solution is actually going to improve one's quality of life.
Yeah, that's a perfect idea too. I wanted to mention, I know I saw you briefly on like a newscast for like more like traditional media. How has the public reaction been for like those type of news sources? I haven't really looked into it too much, but I was curious.
Yeah, so far we've been met with a lot of enthusiasm from a lot of community members. We've had local media coverage that similarly as well was very intrigued by the fact that there is a competitive race for the mayor of Providence, a seat that is often seen as one where a mayor can come in and serve 2 terms without much issue. In other words, there is not a tradition of challenging power, of challenging the incumbent. But clearly what we are seeing in front of us within our city is not sustainable. We're watching way too many working people getting priced out, and there is a lack of urgency from our current mayor, Brett Smiley.
Yeah.
And for that reason, we need bold solutions that are centered around the needs of working people, not the needs of campaign donors.
Yeah. I think what's really interesting too is coming from November 4th, we saw such a massive shift in policies for just regular Americans shifting to the left. You saw it in like Seattle, you saw it in New York City, obviously with Zoran, you saw it in like New Jersey as well. Has this given you any motivation to be more aggressive with advocating for more progressive policies at all? Or is this kind of just was always your plan?
Yeah, so it's staying the course. I think this further excites our volunteers, for example, which is really amazing to see.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, when you're running a grassroots campaign, it is centered around people power. We cannot make a grassroots campaign like this successful unless we have community members that feel motivated to go out and knock on doors.
Right.
Because it's a lot to ask someone to take some time from their weekend on a given weekday after they get off work to go knock on a stranger's door, to talk with their neighbor and explain how it is that we are working towards solutions that are going to improve their lives. And so following November, following Zoran's victory, I think there was a large spew of enthusiasm from a lot of neighbors in Providence, especially, again, young people that wanted to get involved and have something similar from what we saw in New York City happen right here in our backyard.
Yeah. Which, again, I think it's great that there's so many new people getting really motivated and also maintaining that momentum post-November 4th. I did want to mention, too, I was personally really surprised. I didn't really expect Zoran to meet with Trump so quickly after he was basically officially elected. How do you expect to... Not that, because obviously we're a smaller city too, so I don't imagine there's going to be that much of a direct connection. And I think New York was interesting too, because obviously Trump was from there. But how do you expect to interact with Trump's administration?
So I intend to engage with our federal delegation as much as possible between our congressional delegation and our senators, and be very clear that my expectation and goal as mayor is to maximize the amount of federal funding and support that we can get for initiatives related to housing, related to homelessness prevention, related back to our public schools, and recognizing that that relationship between the city of Providence and our congressional delegation is very meaningful in order to ensure that, one, we're being proactive about being on the defense in case funds are on the verge of being cut, while at the same time proactively looking and identifying federal grants where we can get ahead of the game, apply for them, and ensure that our partners, whether it's nonprofits that are doing this frontline work or our Providence public schools, are able to access more resources.
Yeah, that's really great too, because that's something that I think a lot of places, even like the private companies here like Brown, which is like they're having trouble getting funding from the government right now because Trump's being so strict with how he's just kind of making decisions. I did want to talk because going back a little bit to the housing crisis that we have, not to call it like a crisis, but
it's an emergency.
Yeah,
it's an emergency. We are on the brink of an emergency. We have, again, rising rates of homelessness, especially amongst families.
Yeah.
We see the rent increases that are just not sustainable. I think it's appropriate to, again, call it an emergency, call it a crisis. It is very severe.
Yeah. And I think an issue that you brought up on your website too is that these large corporations like Brown are buying out so much property, and really I know kind of secondhand too that they're buying these properties and a lot of times they're not even using these buildings. There's lots of empty space that's not being occupied, and so they're just buying it just to have it. And a lot of these donations they get are specifically to also buy more land or to restructure more land too. It's a bad situation because also we're not like a larger city to be able to really fully defend ourselves. And you mentioned this on your website. How do you expect to stop these companies from being able to possess so much land?
What we have in Providence is an unfair and unbalanced tax system. Over 40% of our land is exempt from taxes, predominantly due to the presence of our private universities. Unfortunately, our current mayor reached an agreement with our private universities being Providence College, Johnson & Wales, RISD, and Brown University a few years ago that essentially allows them to pay only 8% of what they would otherwise pay in property taxes. They're getting a whopping 90% discount on their property taxes.
That's really nuts.
That was a choice that was made by this administration, and it has come at the expense of working people in our communities. You look at a city like New Haven. They have been able to reach an agreement with Yale University, where Yale has committed to paying an upwards of 20% of what they otherwise pay in property taxes, in addition to continuing to pay taxes on new property that they acquire. We don't have that here in our city, but we can achieve something very similar. Mm-hmm. My goal as mayor would be to amend our current agreement, one that I consider to be very unfair, and work towards having more equity with the expectation that if and when we raise additional funds and revenue from our private universities, that money be directed back into our Providence public schools. I want a system where our private universities are contributing directly to the needs of our students, our educators, and our families in Providence.
That's really great too. And I'm happy you brought up the tax issue as well, because I was planning to bring that up, because that was something that seems like a massive issue where it's just we have these not to say it's completely similar, but progressive tax policies, these happen for a reason. And usually it's off of, more income is taxed more. It's just it makes sense. And especially it's these overprivileged corporations shouldn't be getting more discounts. That's insane. So yeah, I'm really happy you brought that up. Do you want to talk more about how you were supporting schools? I saw that on your website too, that's a really important policy that you had. And I think it's really important in every city. There's obviously going to be inequality in areas, and having equitable education for every student is incredibly important.
Absolutely. And for that reason, we need to increase investments all across the board for Providence public schools, specifically to improve staffing levels. Right now we have schools with over 1,100 students, but only 2 social workers. Many of our classrooms have over 25 students with no teaching assistant. We need to ensure that every school is safely staffed, where you have a social worker for every 200 students, where we have smaller classroom sizes, similar to what we see in Barrington and Warren. We need to get to a place where we have more multilingual educators. And now I'm identifying what it is that we need. Now the question is, how do we get there? Mm-hmm. And the answer there is making sure that when it comes to the city budget, we're increasing investments to Providence Public Schools with a direct requirement that the money that the city contributes back to Providence Public Schools will be directed specifically to staffing needs, not to central office administrators or consultants designed to tell our teachers how to do their job, but direct frontline educators. And I want to also reference the fact that we have all the talent in our backyard, in our city, to make this staffing possible. We have so many underemployed adults. We have young people that are Providence Public School alumni that feel directionless and don't know what career path they might want to pursue. I am prepared to work and establish a partnership between the City of Providence, CCRI, College Unbound, and Rhode Island College to create pathway programs. Pathway programs so multilingual adults are able to become teachers without having to worry about out-of-pocket expenses, to ensure that we have more social workers that are from our communities that are working in our communities.
That's great. I mean, that's such an important issue right now. It's just like education, like being able to defend it here is so important, especially with Trump. Not that this would directly affect any of our schools here, but like trying to abolish the Department of Education. It's so important to make sure we have such a solid foundation here. So
Yes.
It's really great that that's a policy too. Another thing in terms of like community support and I think what's really is kind of like protecting people who are just like walking and stuff. And you mentioned, again, on your website, a lot of things that I took from your website. You mentioned raised crosswalks as being something that you want to implement. And I'd like to give you a platform to talk about it a bit and like how it would, like, how does this affect the safety of people walking across? Obviously having it raised is gonna, it's gonna make it difficult for cars to drive over and whatever, but like what are the demographics of like safety for this and how many do you plan to implement in Providence?
That is a great question. So in the City of Providence, we have a plethora of speed bumps. Mm-hmm. The issue with the existing speed bumps that the city installs is that many cars simply maneuver and drive through them.
Yeah, because they're all like segmented into blocks, so you really can't just like maneuver over them all the time.
Exactly, and I feel like at some point in time, that has caused more danger on the roads when you have cars swerving trying to avoid the speed bumps than you actually have cars just slowing down in response.
Right.
Raised crosswalks have multitude of benefits. A multitude of benefits specifically. It gives elevation to the pedestrian that is crossing the street. Mm-hmm. Elevation that makes them more visible to the driver. In addition to that, they cannot be ignored. If a car wants to maneuver their way out of a raised crosswalk, they would literally have to drive on the sidewalk.
Yeah, right.
And thankfully, it does not happen. So instead, a car is forced to slow down naturally. Mm-hmm. And we have seen raised crosswalks installed right on Smith Street in front of the State House, in addition to some streets like Academy Avenue that are relatively busy, and they have one installed right in front of Mount Pleasant Library. Mm-hmm. These are very effective measures to ensure that speed is mitigated, but most importantly, that there's a sense of safety and a sense of reassurance for the pedestrian that is crossing, that the cars that are heading their way are
going to see you.
Yeah, they're going to be seen and they're going to slow down.
Yeah, that's good. How many do you plan on like implementing around the city? Do you have like a vague number of like how much?
So we've identified corridors where we would want to see raised crosswalks. One that immediately comes to mind is Westminster and Parade Street. Okay. It's right in front of Sin Bakery. RIP to Sin Bakery. We miss y'all. It was delicious coffee, delicious pastries. Wish y'all were still open. But going to Sin Bakery, it's treacherous. Because of the fact that, again, you just got cars moving all over the place. Right. Even though there is a painted crosswalk, you are still at the whim of the cars that are flying by. Yeah. I believe a raised crosswalk demonstrates and brings that level of reassurance to the pedestrian. Like, no, I am being seen and I have that right away.
Yeah, and honestly, it makes sense to implement these as well because on crosswalks, pedestrians are always supposed to have the right of way anyway. So It forces cars to give them the right of way no matter what.
Yes, and so again, there are corridors that we are actively identifying, such as those on Westminster, such as those on Smith Street. I do want to note some of those corridors are technically state roads. And so I am prepared as mayor to work directly with the Department of Transportation to ensure that we're able to coordinate with our Division of Public Works to get these raised crosswalks installed. Because what frustrates me is that the city will invest significantly around signage. Mm-hmm. They will put an arrow saying that there is a crosswalk here. But again, there is not much value to that because there's not actually built-in infrastructure that's going to keep people safe. It's just a ton of signs telling you, hey, it'd be nice if you slow down.
But yeah, and like with the raised crosswalks, it just forces you to actually stop. And it's funny too, I keep thinking like the idea of having these bumps, it seems kind of so like disingenuous for doing it, because like surely it like almost costs more money to like line up these stupid bumps in the middle of the road rather than just like creating a whole thing there. Just like it just seems ridiculous.
But again, I'm glad you say that. And I have to say, I am pleased that we were able to spend a few minutes just talking about raised crosswalks.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was something that was like unique for your campaign, and I think it was like it's a good idea too. So yeah, I'm happy we talked about it. Another thing for community support I wanted to bring up was you mentioned a lot about supporting RIPTA and also having free buses for Providence. And I think, I feel like it's a little different for Providence than it was for like Zoran in New York, because RIPTA recently they've had to cut down a lot of their, I'm actually not sure like the percentage of it, but they had to cut down some of their routes because they just didn't have the funding for it. And so would you plan on like reinvesting to have those routes reopened? And then also, free buses, I want to be able to talk about that as well.
Absolutely. So we are going to work as a city administration directly with RIPTA to ensure that part of our city budget incorporates investments for RIPTA. Unfortunately, cities and towns in Rhode Island do not fund RIPTA because of the fact that it's a state agency. I, for one, believe that because we are the capital city, we have the responsibility to demonstrate to all of our neighbors across the state, this is what quality public transportation looks like. We're far from it.
Yeah.
Kennedy Plaza, unfortunately, has been an underutilized transit hub. It's been underinvested. There have not been improvements made in quite a while. And you combine that with some of the service cuts that you're referencing right now. The convenience and experience of being a bus rider in this day and age within our state, within our city, is one that has left a lot of people stranded and a lot of people frustrated.
Yeah.
And we're talking about community members from all walks of life, from students that use the bus to get to school, to our seniors that depend on RIPTA for the purposes of getting to a food pantry, to their doctor's office, to working people that use RIPTA for the purposes of getting to their job. Everyone has felt that layer of inconvenience.
I have a friend that's like local to my job that has been affected because of these cuts, like immediately. Like she was just like, she had to start walking longer to get to a different bus and everything. And it really is a shame, because this should be just a community
it's a public good.
Right.
It's a public good.
Yeah.
Public transportation is a public good not designed to break even or make a profit.
Yeah.
And that is what frustrates me, is that the state has seen a decline in ridership and therefore has justified further cuts, which is ironic, because if you continue attacking the service, naturally, you're going to see less people using the service overall.
Right.
My goal is to ensure that we are able to build out a system right here in our city where we're able to demonstrate higher utilization rate of RIPTA. I think some of that starts with, again, entering that partnership. So in order to make RIPTA free, it would be a gradual phase. Okay. A gradual phase where first and foremost, we would guarantee free bus rides to every Providence Public School student, no means testing applied. If you are a Providence Public School student, you should be able to get on a RIPTA bus worry-free, stress-free, the same way a student at Brown University or RISD is able to tap their ID and use the bus. We need to ensure the same thing for our students. And from there, be able to grow and expand that opportunity for everyone in our city and get to a point where if you are in the capital city of Rhode Island, you can guarantee quality transit.
Yeah, that's a great policy too, because honestly, it's even the smallest thing of just like there's so many hills in the city that just like walking around becomes difficult sometimes. Yes. So having that access of a bus would just be so helpful. But yeah, even like I've gotten so used to just like driving around myself to different areas because I don't want to have to deal with public transport or walking around. And I think just like having, I mean, it's not good for the environment to have all these people, because I'm sure I'm not the only one thinking, you know, I'm just going to drive to this place. I'm going to drive to, you know, the Capitol or whatever. And so it's just great to have an option that would be accessible for people to be able to move around more efficiently and not crowd up all our roads so much.
Exactly.
I wanted to talk to you about, you mentioned a sanctuary ordinance for Providence. This would be directly related to the ICE military, whatever you want to call it, infiltrating our city and taking away our, you know, our citizens. Do you want to talk about how that would be implemented and what that would look like for Providence?
Absolutely. So unfortunately, over the last several months, we've seen a growing presence of ICE all across the city. From the West End to Silver Lake, all the way to downtown in front of our courthouse. We've seen ICE detain community members and deport them with little to no due process. And there's a lot of fear that exists right now within our immigrant community, and for good reason, because we have seen the footage of community members literally being kidnapped in broad daylight.
And it's kidnapping. It's like, it looks illegal. They're breaking windows every day. I mean, like, the things that the ICE agents are doing are unjustifiable in every sense.
And it's happening in our backyard. Because sometimes we look at those videos and we assume that it's just a border city that's being impacted. But the fact that it's happening in Providence, and there is little leadership coming out of City Hall regarding this issue, is just insulting. Insulting for a city that was built by immigrants. And for that reason, we are going to have strengthened sanctuary city ordinances in place to guarantee that A, there will be no collaboration in any way, shape, or form between Providence Police and ICE officers, but two, we're going to prohibit ICE from operating on any city-owned property, including schools. So if an ICE vehicle is ever within the proximity of our schools or city property, we will direct tow trucks to immediately remove those vehicles from the premises.
Good.
Because that is the action we have to take as a city in order to prevent this violence from continuing to happen.
Yeah, it's protecting our citizens. It makes perfect sense. Is there any roadmap to actually prosecuting these ICE agents at all, or is it more so just like, because it's such a complicated situation when it's like, it's basically, a state government going against a federal government, and like the complications of that is...
Exactly, and for that reason, we're looking at preventative measures.
Yeah.
Preventative measures similar to what has been done in Chicago. I think Chicago has outlined for us a blueprint of what it looks like for a city to ICE-proof themselves, to have literal signs that say that ICE is not authorized to operate or occupy any of the following properties in our community. And we need to do the exact same thing within the city.
Yeah, for sure. I also wanted to mention this will be transitioning to something more positive, because the last thing on your issues list was artist support, is how I kind of vaguely called it, which you were like mentioning support for your libraries, having more access to free film screenings, which I think is also great. We have already like a loose foundation of that in Newport, because we have that all over the summer. We have stuff like that there, which I've gone to, and it's great. But I think having access for people that are here that probably don't have like an easy ability to go all the way over to Newport and back every day, I think it's perfect. Do you want to talk more about those policies that are more just like supporting?
Fun and joy.
Yeah.
Fun and joy in our city, because community members deserve nice things. And that starts with something as simple as guaranteeing that your library, your local neighborhood library, is going to be open on Saturday. Right now, we have 9 community libraries of Providence. Only 3 of them are open on a given Saturday: Mount Pleasant, Knight Memorial, and Rochambeau. The other 6 are not open on Saturdays. I think it's an easy investment to say that we're going to work towards guaranteeing that libraries all across Providence be open 6 out of 7 days a week. We want to work towards guaranteeing that all of our libraries are able to operate with full evening hours in place, because we have many students, many families that depend on the library, as that source is the environment for their child to go after school. But unfortunately, the investments have not been made. And for that reason, many of our libraries are forced to close by 5:30, 5 p.m. We want to go a step further to recognize that we are the creative capital. We are the creative capital year round. We're not just a creative capital when it's PVD Fest. We're not just a creative capital when it is convenient. We have so many talented independent artists. We have so many talented artists that come from organizations like AS220 and New Urban Arts. We need to do everything we can as a city to uplift that local talent. And that starts with being able to have neighborhood concerts, festivals in place that spotlight the local talent that we already have. And I believe that when we curate public joy, it goes a very long way for community members to recognize that they belong in our city. I want to get to a point where we're able to close down more of our streets throughout the year. It would be nice to be able to close down Smith Street, not just during St. Patrick's Day parade, but multiple times a year in order to allow for outdoor dining combined with the community concert for neighbors to enjoy.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I think a lot of the larger cities have already kind of felt like they're kind of implementing these stuff too. So I think it's a really great roadmap to follow. And I think there's already such a rich foundation for that in Providence too, because even like during the summer too, I should have mentioned this earlier, but like water fire is such a huge thing, and that happens like, it's like every 2 weeks over the summer, something like super consistent. And so having more of these festivals where you're like supporting each other in the community and just like having an environment where everyone's supporting each other, I think is so great, and it's necessary.
I completely agree, and it can't just be in downtown. That's the one piece I want to emphasize, that we need to be able to bring this level of programming neighborhood to neighborhood, because we have many neighborhoods, such as those in Silver Lake or Elmwood, that feel left behind. And if you live in one of those respective neighborhoods, your commute to get to downtown might be 15 minutes plus. The RIPTA route might not be convenient to get to Kennedy Plaza. So for that reason, we need to be able to bring direct programming to our neighbors where they are so they can literally just step outside and enjoy the magic in front of them.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Thank you so much for being here. I don't have any more prepared things I wanted to mention. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up before we close up?
So this has been very exciting. I think we've talked through a series of issues impacting our city. From the housing emergency in front of us to the lack of support many of our students are feeling, all the way back to the creative arts that make Providence so special. And what we have before us is a very exciting moment where we are building something special. So far, since we've launched our campaign, we've already knocked on over 7,500 doors. We've had thousands of conversations with our neighbors who are looking for change. And that's what excites me as we head into the new year, is an opportunity to demonstrate a different vision centered around affordability, centered around joy, but beyond that, centered around the needs of what community needs. So I appreciate being able to have an opportunity on this platform to also share that vision, because I know that together we're going to build that Providence for all.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend.